Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. We are content experts. Let your voice be heard. Welcome to another episode of Voices. Voices, visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. I'm your host, Keston Jones, and today we have a very special guest, Miss Dinah Ortiz.
Hi, Keston.
How you doing? How you doing? Dinah and I go way back, and I just thought it would be just a great opportunity for her to come on the show and actually speak about her passion, what led her to do the work that she does on a regular basis. So without further ado, Dinah, please tell me about yourself and what led you to your work or working with marginalized communities.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've been excited to see you for the longest time. And, you know, just jumping right in, what led me to work with the marginalized population and community is, in fact, my own personal experience of having child welfare in my life. Back in beginning of 1999, I had that, you know, infamous knock on the door in the middle of the night that we fear or so much, parents, particularly, and that then just pretty much began my entire experience with the child welfare, and that lasted 7 years. And so from there, I really didn't know where to turn or who to turn to for help. I kind of felt lost and alone and ashamed and embarrassed, you know.
Why ashamed and embarrassed?
Because, you know, oftentimes we think of people that have had child welfare involvement as bad parents, quote unquote, and unworthy of parenting their children, right? We don't give them the benefit of the doubt that we do parents that don't look like us. And so for me, it was a lot of embarrassment, just carrying that over my head, that stood with me throughout the years, until I started meeting people that were doing advocacy work, and that led me on the path that I'm at now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you talk more, a little bit about some of those people or organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I had started just kind of by sheer luck running into someone at a organization called Correction Association. Her name was Tina. And she was working remotely from her home. She had a very small grassroots organization, working with formerly incarcerated women and the formerly incarcerated population, and just having, you know, like a safe space for them when they were coming home. And it was through that organization that I interned for an organization called National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and there the executive director, Lynn Paltrow, and the assistant director, Emma Ketteringham, were the ones who kind of took me under their wing and pretty much opened my eyes to the injustices of the child welfare system, and the racial disparities that exist in the child welfare system.
Absolutely. Shout out to Emma and Lynn for their work. I'm very familiar with the work that they've done. Question, are people of color, communities of color, disproportionately more impacted or not, or more involved in the family court system? And what are some of the factors that leads to communities of color being impacted by this system in the way that that you described?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. People, marginalized people, communities of color, people of color, they are way more impacted by these systems, and they because they are over surveilled, or I don't even want to say we are over surveilled constantly, right? And when I mean over surveilled, I mean that in every avenue and every aspect of our lives, whether it be that we have to go to HRA office for public assistance, or we need to go to, you know, or we're taking our child to public schools, or we have to go to public hospitals, you know, in all of those avenues, there's an opportunity for surveillance, and that makes it 10 times more likely for our community to end up in the family court system.
Absolutely. And what are some of the reasons why, that people or communities of color are brought to in the system? And I'm familiar with it in my work that I previously done at the Bronx Defenders. You and I
Yes.
Both were employed there. You still are. Shout out to the Bronx Defenders. But when I did this work as a parent advocate, especially working for fathers, I noticed that many of my clients were brought in family court for issues that in other communities wouldn't be, such as little Joshua fell down and bumped his head, went to the clinic, but rather than the clinic believing that the little Joshua went and bumped his head accidentally, a call would be made to ACS or one of the organizations. So, can we talk more about the reasons and the various reasons why people from communities of color are brought into the system?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right about that, right? Like, it's, definitely that parents of color are afraid of bringing their kids to the doctor's office because they're afraid of that call being made. But the majority of the calls and the clients that I see coming through are clients that are dealing with substance use. And so that brings them into court for things such as marijuana use.
Yeah, absolutely. So with respect to substance abuse, I know that you've done work extensively around the area of harm reduction. Can you talk about harm reduction and what is harm reduction and how is it different from traditional substance abuse treatment? And are there any benefits to utilizing a harm reduction lens in working with clients?
Yeah. So, the harm reduction method is exactly what the name says. It's reducing the harm. And we use that method in every aspect of our lives. But when it comes down to illicit substances, what it means is that you should be able to use safely, right? Like we have the difference between people of color and, affluent, white people or Caucasians is that they can use in the comfort of their home, in areas like Park Slope and Upper West Side, right? But our clients are not afforded the same thing. And so what we're saying is just afford them the same benefits that you do the affluent and, Caucasian people that use and blog about it. And it's basically, if you're going to be using, instead of smoking 2 joints, you smoke 1, or instead of smoking by yourself, you make sure that you have a friend with you. We do know that, there's no kind of evidence that you can overdose from marijuana. So, just in particular, when it comes down to harm reduction, it's about just using safely, using wisely and making sure that you are taking care of yourself, making sure that you have the ability to go and, seek treatment if you choose to, but not that it's forced upon you.
Absolutely. And it's amazing that we're talking about marijuana in particular, especially since many states throughout this country has legalized marijuana. And I think about that as someone who works in communities of color, who works around the area of criminal justice reform, where we have hundreds of thousands of people of color who are impacted by these laws when it comes to marijuana use and are spending years in prison. And then one swoop of the pen, this state says we legalize, and now people are making billions of dollars off of marijuana. But many states and many people are still suffering from the consequences of marijuana, laws that have been negatively impacting people of color. So how do you feel about the legalization of marijuana? And for New York State, is that something that you believe we should move towards?
I mean, we should have done it a long time ago, right? We should have, not only legalized it, we should be decriminalizing it. And I believe that about all substances, right? But, I have the opportunity to travel and speak to different, populations. And I recently went to California and Colorado, both states where marijuana is legalized. And it's crazy how New York, kind of touts itself as like a progressive state. But, you go into a state like Colorado and marijuana is legalized, and you come back into New York and it's still not. We still haven't caught up. And so it's very frustrating to see, again, that it's our population that is being, traumatized and being penalized for the very same things that, affluent people get to utilize freely every single day.
Absolutely, and you know, congratulations on your work that you've done all over the country. Might I add, I follow you extensively on social media as well, and I see that you've spoken on a number of panels, keynote speaking addresses, and so on and so forth. So why is it important for someone such as yourself, Afro-Latina, to be able to be present in these conferences and also to share your story in respects to criminal justice involvement, family court involvement, or whatever subject that the panel is addressing? Why is it important for your voice to be there?
Yeah, it's important because my voice, it represents my community. And that's exactly what it's all about. It's about representing my community. You know, like I said, I was very ashamed and very embarrassed about, you know, experiencing what I experienced. And so now I am in a position where I can speak about that, about what I experienced with, you know, with certainty that had I not been a poor person of color, that I would not have experienced that. And so I want other people in my community to feel that they can do the very same thing that I'm doing, and that they should get up and they should speak out about the traumas and the horrors that they, you know, experience, whether it be in any isms, in any systems, right? The criminal justice system, the child welfare system, right? Like the immigration system, any of those systems, it's all about, they're all about kind of just like keeping marginalized people's voices silent.
Absolutely, and I've had the pleasure of hearing you a number of times. And what just strikes me in the times that I've heard you speak is oftentimes you'll be on the panel with Dr. such and such, or, you know, somebody that, you know, may have all these credentials, but I've noticed that when you speak, the people in the audience, the people who are, you know, asking questions after the panel, they want to hear you. They want to hear from you. And I think that's very important for us and people who are involved and who have lived experience to actually be on the cusp of changing what we see is happening on a regular basis. So, damn. This, you know, we can certainly go on and on, but I certainly want to find out, you know, please tell the viewers a little bit more about what you have coming up, you know, the work that you're doing, and how can they get in contact with you, whether it be Twitter, social media. Please share, because I'm sure the viewers would like to hear more about you, more about your story, and even support some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, you know, thank you for having me. It was great seeing you, Kes. And, you know, one day I'll get to interview you and all of the amazing things that you have been doing for our community.
Absolutely.
But my Twitter handle is Dinahortiz4, and social media is Dinah Ortiz. And what I have coming up, actually, the next speaking engagement I have is in April, and it's at a semi-big conference. I can't give out all of the information yet.
Got you.
But I'm going to be actually one of the opening speakers at that conference, as well as presenting on a panel with Richard Wexler, that is a very, very good kind of vlogger in the child welfare system.
Yes.
So, you know, stay tuned for that stuff and follow my social media, and you'll see all about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So once again, this has been another episode of Voices, visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. And I certainly want you to be aware of the importance of people from marginalized communities to be able to be on platforms like this to share their stories, because no matter what they tell you, we are content experts. So be on the lookout for this episode. Please let us know your thoughts on this particular episode. Let us know, let Dinah know how you feel about her work and support her work. And please reach out to her on social media. This has been your host, Keston Jones, signing off. Peace.